Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of British English Pod. As you probably know, my name is Lewis, a British English teacher with over 10 years of experience, and every week, every few days, I try to provide you with some useful, fun, engaging English lessons so you can go from intermediate to an advanced speaker and finally become fluent. And in today's episode, we're going to learn about famous British people throughout history with a few more relevant and modern people as well. So with a bit of help from my friend, ChatGPT, I have put together a nice PowerPoint going over these 20 people with a very short description of who they are and what they did. Because personally, I'm not very good at history. I don't know all of the hidden stories behind these famous and influential people. But, I got a little help from my friend. So hopefully you'll be able to learn not only some English today, but also learn about historical figures in the United Kingdom. So that being said, shall we get the ball rolling? The first person, and this is in not necessarily any particular order, but we're going to begin with more historical figures and then finish off with some more modern people that I'm sure you've seen in the flesh. But of course, our first person, he died a long time ago. It is William Shakespeare. He is like the father of the English language. And he is the most famous writer in the English language. He wrote plays and poems that explore love, power, jealousy, ambition, and also betrayal, themes that are still relevant today. And his work has been translated into hundreds of languages and performed all over the world. And he's also famous for shaping modern English, inventing words and expressions like break the ice, a wild goose chase, and a heart of gold. Now let me just go over these phrases. If you break the ice, you make an awkward or uncomfortable situation a little bit, more comfortable by maybe making a joke, for example. Then a wild goose chase is something that is very, very difficult to achieve. You're going around and around in circles trying to find the solution. You go on a wild goose chase. And the third expression was a heart of gold. I could say that my friend has a heart of gold, meaning that she is a very, very nice person with a good heart. So that's our first person. So William Shakespeare. And the next one is Isaac Newton. And he was born in 1643 and he died in 1727. And I'm sure you already know this, but Sir Isaac Newton was a scientist, mathematician, and philosopher. He developed the laws of motion and the theory of gravity, which explain how objects move and why things fall to the ground. His discoveries were so important that they dominated science for over 200 years. And Newton is remembered as one of the greatest scientific minds in human history. And I'm sure you also know him from this anecdote of how he discovered that gravity existed when an apple fell off a tree and hit him on his head. And he was like, that's it. Gravity. So the second person is Isaac Newton. How about the third one? Another scientist, influential person who changed the course of humanity. So it is Charles Darwin, and he was born in 1809 and died in 1882. As I mentioned, Charles Darwin completely changed how humans understand life. After traveling around the world, he developed the theory of evolution by natural selection, explaining how species adapt and change over time. His ideas challenged religious beliefs and caused huge debate, but today they are central to modern biology. So Charles Darwin is known for this theory and discovery of natural selection, how species adapt and change in order to survive. That, the third influential person, is Charles Darwin. And let's move on to the fourth one. As I'm sure you can imagine, there are a couple of royal characters and people who belong to the royal family in this list, because the United Kingdom as a monarchy gives so much power to kings, queens, princes, and princesses. And the first one is Queen Victoria, who was born on 1819 and died in 1901. By the way, I think something slipped my tongue there. I said on 1819, but I take it back. That was a mistake, an error. Remember that prepositions of time, you use in if it is a year, and on if we state the exact date. So she was born in 1819. Anyway, Queen Victoria ruled Britain for more than 60 years during the Victorian era. And this was a time of industrial growth, empire expansion, and major social change. Britain became the most powerful nation in the world. The good old days. And her reign shaped British values, traditions, and even architecture. And her influence is still visible today. So that is Queen Victoria. And this was during the Victorian era. But let's keep going to another very, very influential person who I'm sure you've seen depicted and represented on many different films related to World War II. Yes, you guessed it. It is Winston Churchill. And he was born in 1874 and died in 1965. As I mentioned, Winston Churchill was Prime Minister during World War II, and he's famous for his powerful speeches, strong personality, and determination to resist Nazi Germany. At a time when Britain faced invasion, Churchill helped keep morale high. For many people, he symbolizes British resilience and courage. And I'm not an expert on Winston Churchill, but I think he is respected by many, many people all around the world for standing up to the Nazis and standing up to Hitler. And obviously, we only managed to stop World War II thanks to the Americans, because if not, we would have probably been doomed. But Churchill played a huge role in ensuring that that would happen. And I remember, just a random thought, that a few weeks ago, a random guy on Instagram popped up on my feed, and he was showing Winston Churchill's typical diet. And it was crazy because he liked to drink. He had a brandy in the morning, a couple of beers at lunch, a glass of wine followed by more whiskey, and he managed to do this all while being the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Crazy. Respect. Anyway, enough on Churchill. And let's move on to Florence Nightingale, who was born in 1820 and died in 1910. She is considered the founder of modern nursing. So during the Crimean War, she dramatically improved hospital conditions, hygiene, and patient care. And she also used statistics to prove that better sanitation saved lives. Florence Nightingale transformed healthcare and professionalized nursing around the world. So I must admit, I had heard of her before, but I didn't really know what she did. So now this is a learning experience for me too, because now I know that Florence Nightingale was the mother of modern nursing. So we have her to thank for when we think of how advanced and professional and well-developed the nursing system is around the world, thanks to her. But let's keep going to another World War II influential person, and he is Alan Turing. Born in 1912, and he died, unfortunately, in 1954, so he was very young. But Alan Turing was a mathematician, code breaker, and computer pioneer. During World War II, he helped crack the Nazi Enigma code, which is believed to have shortened the war by several years. He also laid the foundations for modern computers. Yet, he was tragically persecuted for being gay. And today, he's recognized as a national hero. And in fact, there's a famous film which I've watched and was really, really good, which is, I think, 10 years old. And the star of the film is, what's his name? You know who I'm thinking of. Who is it? Benedict Cumberbatch. So the name of the film is The Imitation Game. And it was released in, when was it? In 2014. And I highly recommend watching this film because it actually made you think of how important the role of Alan Turing actually was in World War II. So The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch is a great film that I recommend you watch to improve your British English, but at the same time, learn more about Alan Turing. Enough about him. Let's keep going with George Orwell, who I'm sure you know very well as well. And unfortunately, he had a very short life as well, because he was born in 1903 and died in 1950. So he passed away when he was only 47 years old. But George Orwell was a writer and journalist, best known for his work 1984 and Animal Farm. And his work warned about government surveillance, propaganda, and a loss of freedom. Words like Big Brother and Orwellian come directly from his writing. His ideas feel more relevant than ever nowadays in the digital age, because it speaks all about how, the government, the leaders, they are manipulating us. They are making us believe certain things. And we are essentially just following the crowd. We are sheep. And if you haven't if you haven't read any of his books, I highly recommend it. I'm not much of a reader. I don't read a lot, but I have read Animal Farm, and it's a book that I thoroughly enjoyed. I read it without taking a break at all, and it's quite short, and it just shows how powerful the ideas of different people can be, and how he uses the metaphor of a farm to show how government can manipulate different people. But anyway, that is George Orwell. The next one, another writer, is Jane Austen. And she was born in 1775 and died, again, very, very young, in only 1817, which means that she was, how old was she? 42 when she passed away. What a shame. But Jane Austen wrote novels about love, about class, and about social expectations. Books like Pride and Prejudice, of course, but also Sense and Sensibility, are admired for their humour, intelligence, and strong female characters. She remains one of Britain's most loved authors, and there are so many people, even nowadays, who will travel to the UK and just be in the Jane Austen world of lots of posh manors, these mansions, these old-fashioned period dramas. I know for a fact that there are some of my students who love Jane Austen, and one of my fiance's favorite films is Pride and Prejudice. So I think I've watched that film at least 10 times. And it's all right, but it's not really my thing. It's not my cup of tea, to be honest. Okay, let's continue. And for this one, we're going way back in time. Because our next influential person from the history of the United Kingdom is William the Conqueror. And he was born in 1028, or 1028, and he died in 1087, 1087. And William the Conqueror became King of England in 1066 after winning the famous Battle of Hastings. He introduced Norman culture, changed the ruling system, and influenced the English language by bringing French vocabulary into English. I'm sure nowadays there are many, many, many different words in English that come from French. And part of it is down to him, is due to him, William the Conqueror. And I don't know a lot about him, apart from him winning the Battle of Hastings, but his conquest shaped England's future forever. Now continuing to someone who I'm sure you've seen maybe in the news before she passed away, or on films and series, it is Margaret Thatcher, Maggie Thatcher. And she was born in 1925 and died in 2013. And Margaret Thatcher was Britain's first female Prime Minister. Her nickname was the Iron Lady. She transformed the economy through privatization and strong free market policies. She was a conservative, so she was more right-wing. And she remains one of the most controversial figures in British politics. She's admired by supporters, but criticized by opponents. And I'll tell you that there are certain areas of the United Kingdom where people look up to her and admire her. Usually these places are more in the south because she kind of benefited the richer areas of the country. But then in areas of Scotland, Wales, Liverpool, Newcastle, these working class towns and regions, people are not very keen on her. They're not very fond of her. So they really, really criticize her because she made many people's lives much harder through austerity and a lack of help from the government. But despite all of that, she's definitely worthy of being included in this list as a really influential and famous person. And the next one is quite modern as well. It is, of course, Stephen Hawking. And he was born in 1942 and died very recently in 2018. Stephen Hawking was a theoretical physicist who studied black holes and the universe. Despite living all his life with a severe physical disability, he made groundbreaking scientific discoveries and wrote A Brief History of Time, which brought complex science to the public. And he became a global symbol of intelligence and determination for achieving the things that he achieved, whilst also battling all his life with this terrible disability. And again, there is a famous film related to Stephen Hawking, which I'm just looking up as we speak, because it's a really good film as well, relatively new, and it is The Theory of Everything from 2014, and it stars Eddie Redmayne, who plays Stephen Hawking. And I won't give away that much, but it's a really good film as well, and a great way to practice your British English listening skills whilst learning more about British culture at the same time. So that is Stephen Hawking and The Theory of Everything. Now, we have our first living historical influential person. It is Sir David Attenborough. Oh, I love Sir David Attenborough. He's a legend, a living legend. and he was born in 1926. So he is 100 years old. And you might not know this, but when you turn 100 years old, you receive a letter, like a poster from the king or the queen. The same thing happens, I believe, if you've been married for 50 years with your husband or wife, you also get the same thing, which is an interesting little piece of information I wanted to share with you. But let's return to David Attenborough. He is a broadcaster and natural historian. His documentaries have educated generations about wildlife, evolution, and climate change. His calm, beautiful voice is instantly recognizable in Britain, and he's also become a powerful environmental campaigner. And if you don't know who I'm speaking about, let me tell you that he is the voice of all of these amazing BBC wildlife documentaries, such as Planet Earth, Blue Planet. There are so many, and they're such good watching. If you like the planet and nature, but you also enjoy travel and want to work on your British accent, I suggest trying to shadow whilst watching Planet Earth. Most of these episodes, you can watch them either on BBC or on Netflix. And it is almost always David Attenborough who actually narrates everything. And he's got a great voice, fantastic voice. Hopefully he lives for many more years and continues to campaign in favor of measures and policies that try to protect our planet. Fingers crossed. Now, the next one, some of them are still alive, I think. It is obviously the Beatles. Now, maybe throughout this podcast up until this moment, we've been going over individuals, but I wanted to include them all together because the Beatles, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, revolutionized music together. They changed how pop music was written, recorded, and performed, influencing fashion, youth culture, and social attitudes. They remain, to this day, one of the most influential bands of all time. And of course, John Lennon, his death, shocked the world because he was so loved and also a little bit controversial with his relationship with Yoko Ono. And other than that, I know Paul McCartney is still alive. And John? I don't really remember. Paul McCartney's alive. I think Ringo Starr might also be alive. But anyway, I like the Beatles, but I'm not a huge mega fan. But when I watch documentaries of the Beatles shows and concerts all over the world, it blows my mind. Because you see how obsessed people were. And that these four lads from Liverpool, from working class backgrounds, got together and worked wonders, created magical music, which could resonate with so many people on all of the continents of the world. And then when they rocked up to a concert, people would be screaming and shouting and asking for autographs, blowing kisses. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy. And I don't know about you, but after I record this podcast, I think I'm going to listen to some Beatles songs because they're timeless. They never get old. Now we have a controversial individual. It is J.K. Rowling. And she was born in 1965. And as you know, she wrote the Harry Potter series, which became a global phenomenon. Her books encouraged millions of children to read and created one of the most successful fictional worlds ever, Hogwarts. Her life story, from poverty to success, is often described as inspirational. But I must add that in recent times, she's made some problematic remarks. It seems that she's very traditional in some of her ways of thinking. So she will be a bit, I don't know, confrontational with her public comments, saying that maybe different people around the world from different ideologies don't have the same rights as other ones. I won't get into any detail because I think it is possible to separate the artist from the person. If we also think about Michael Jackson obviously had a very, very traumatic and crazy life from the day he was born, essentially, to the day he died. And of course, he had to live with a lot of trauma, but also did some horrible things that nobody should ever forgive or accept. But I think you can still respect his music, and you can still listen to his music without feeling guilty. And if you're not a fan of J.K. Rowling, the woman, the person, then fair enough. But I think it's still okay to watch Harry Potter, especially over Christmas time. Harry Potter is on non-stop, and it's undeniable how amazing the books and the films are of Harry Potter, and they'll be around forever. So enough about J.K. Rowling. Let's move on to Lady Di, Princess Diana. Born in 1961, and she died in 1997. What a shame. But Princess Diana was known as the People's Princess. She modernized the royal family's image and was admired for her warmth, empathy, and charity work, particularly with AIDS patients and landmine victims. Her death shocked the world and cemented her legacy. And it's crazy how Princess Diana, I think, is loved worldwide. And obviously, she had a little bit of a difficult life and a difficult time dealing with maybe the gossip and the rules of the royal family in the United Kingdom. She clearly didn't fit in many ways, but she used her platform for good. And I don't know that much about Lady Di. I was born in 1992. She died 5 years later. So the only things I know really are from documentaries. I haven't watched all of the documentaries about her, so I only know the basics. But if you ever say Princess Diana or Lady Di, people all over the world will know who you're talking about, and I don't think people will have a bad word to say about her. So that's why she is included here among the 20 most famous British people. Now we've got another modern one, and we've got an athlete. It is my namesake, Lewis Hamilton, and he was born in 1985. And he is undoubtedly, undeniably, one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time. And he continues to drive as well. He has won multiple world championships and broken long-standing records in the sport. Beyond racing, he's also known for speaking out on diversity, racism, and environmental issues. Hamilton represents modern Britain on a global sporting stage. He's also into his fashion. He has lots of successful businesses. But of course, he is known above all for his skill and his talent as an F1 pilot, an F1 racer, which is a sport that keeps going from strength to strength. The Formula One, I think, is as popular or more popular than it ever has been. And part of that is down to him, Lewis Hamilton. And now we've got another famous English sportsman. It is, of course, David Beckham, otherwise known as Bex. And he was born in 1975. David Beckham is one of the most famous footballers and people in the world. He played for Manchester United, Real Madrid, PSG, AC Milan, and England, of course, and later became a global fashion and cultural icon. Now he owns the American football club Inter Miami, where Lionel Messi plays as well. So he has gone on to become a very, very successful businessman as well, since he moved to LA Galaxy maybe 20 years ago now. And even people who don't follow football will know his name. And he's someone who I think around the world as well, almost like Lady D, everybody loves him. Nobody's really got a bad word to say about him. And I don't know if you've already watched it or not, but on Netflix, he has a documentary which goes through his life from being a very, very young boy in London to being scouted and then going on to play for Manchester United and so on and so forth. But I'd recommend that documentary because I watched it and I was glued to the screen. I wanted to know more. And that, of course, is David Beckham. Now, I believe we've got two more characters. The next one is also alive. It is Elton John, who was born in 1947. Now, I could have included so many different artists. I was thinking about including Adele. I thought about including David Bowie. Maybe even including Amy Winehouse or Freddie Mercury as well. But it was a toss-up. I could have included them all. In the end, I went for Elton John because he's one of the most successful musicians in history. He has sold over 300 million records worldwide and written iconic songs like Rocket Man and Your Song. Beyond music, he's also known for his flamboyant style and long-running fight against HIV and AIDS through his charity work. So, he's another legend, another famous person, but here in this category of singer or artist, I could have included so many. I went for Elton John, because why not? Few British artists have had such a global cultural impact. Now the last one, we began with the more elderly people, and I also went over the role of Queen Victoria in the Victorian era. But for me, given that throughout all of my life, we've had the same queen. It is Queen Elizabeth II, who was born in 1926 and died fairly recently in 2022. Queen Elizabeth II was Britain's longest reigning monarch. She ruled for over 70 years, witnessing enormous social, political, and technological change. She was admired for her sense of duty, stability, and dedication to public service. For many, she symbolized continuity in a changing world. Everything else in the world was changing, yet Queen Elizabeth was still there, still around. And I don't know if you've watched the series, again on Netflix, The Crown, but it's really good, and you get to learn a lot more about the royal family and how it was that Queen Elizabeth came into power and led from the front for so many years. And there are people who are against the royal family. There are people who are kind of indifferent to the royal family. And that's basically me. I don't really care. But I do respect the Queen. For me, she will always be the Queen. Not Queen Elizabeth, but the Queen. That's it. Because she always seemed to be very elegant, very respectful. She was known for being a little bit funny as well, with her corgis and having a cup of tea and a little bit of brandy. And yeah, even people who dislike the concept of a monarchy and a royal family will often still respect the Queen. So that's it. That is my list of 20 of the most famous British people throughout history. And let me know if you think there are any of these people that are missing that I should have included instead of other people who I did include on the list. But I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If so, leave a like, leave a review, a nice comment, subscribe for more. And if you really want to improve your British English and speak to me 24/7, then you can download my brand new application, English with Lewis. It's available on the App Store at the moment, and in February, it will also be available on Android. That way, you can take your English to the next level from the comfort of your phone. Easy peasy. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!